And welcome to Chapter 3 of The Adventures of Pinocchio by Carlo Collodi. All right. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. Especially since the Disney movie, which is great, misses 90% of the book. Chapter 3, Geppetto, having returned home, begins at once to make a puppet, to which he gives the name Pinocchio. The first trick's played by the puppet. Some sense there. Thank you, Watermill Classic. So they've copyrighted this intro text. Maybe they should have thought about writing the sentence. Geppetto lived in a small ground floor room that was only lighted from the staircase. The furniture could not have been simpler. A bad chair, a poor bed, and a broken down table. At the end of the room there was a fireplace with a lighted fire, but the fire was painted, and by the fire was a painted saucepan that was boiling cheerfully and sending out a cloud of smoke that looked exactly like real smoke. So, did Geppetto paint? I guess he did. Realism, too. As soon as he reached home, Geppetto took his tools and set to work to cut out and model his puppet. "What name shall I give him?" he said to himself. "I think I will call him Pinocchio. It is a name that will bring him luck. I once knew a whole family so called." Who translated this? There was Pinocchio the father, Pinocchia the mother, and the Pinocchio children, and all of them did well. The richest of them was a beggar. Having found a name for his puppet, he began to work in earnest. First he made his hair, then his forehead, and then his eyes. So he named the puppet before he made the puppet. The eyes being finished, imagine his astonishment when he saw that they moved and looked directly at him. Geppetto, seeing himself stared at by those two wooden eyes, said in an angry voice, "Wicked wooden eyes, why do you look at me?" So in the Disney movie, Geppetto just paints them on, I think. No one answered. He then proceeded to carve the nose, but no sooner had he made it than it began to grow. So the nose grows whether he lies or not. A big sin in the Disney Pinocchio movie is they made it into a Christian morality tale. And obviously here it's pagan. The Blue Fairy, she's a forest pagan goddess who's been alive for 1,000 years. It has nothing to do with Christianity. And it grew and grew and grew until in a few minutes it had become an immense nose. It seemed as if it would never end. So the book never talks about how Geppetto carves the penis of Pinocchio, but he must have, because boys have penises. I mean, every boy has a penis. Poor Geppetto tired himself out cutting it off, the nose. But the more he cut and shortened it, the longer the nose became. The mouth was not even complete when it began to laugh and deride him. So Pinocchio is literally like a 3-year-old child, just out of control. "Stop laughing," said Geppetto, provoked, but he might as well have spoken to the wall. "Stop laughing, I say," he roared in a threatening tone. The mouth then ceased laughing, but put out its tongue as far as it would go. We're only on page 10, folks. Geppetto, not to spoil his handiwork, pretended not to see and continued his labors. After the mouth, he fashioned the chin, then the throat, then the shoulders, the stomach, the arms, and the hands. The hands were barely finished when Geppetto felt his wig snatched from his head. Yeah, Geppetto wore a wig. Thanks, Disney. He turned around, and what did he see? He saw his yellow wig in the puppet's hand. Pinocchio, give me back my wig instantly. That is just not an easygoing sentence. Pinocchio, give me back my wig this instant. That's English. This was published in 1985. Pinocchio, give me back my wig instantly. No one says that in English. Pinocchio, give me back my wig this instant, is what a parent would say. But Pinocchio, instead of returning it, put it on his own head. And as a consequence, nearly smothered. That's an awkward sentence, too. And as a consequence, oh my goodness, they misspelled it. Consequence, not consequence. So, Watermill Classic, they're just not good. So many errors. And as a consequence, nearly smothered himself. That sentence needs some work. So my point being that just because something is printed doesn't mean it's authoritative. Geppetto at the Bible. Geppetto, at this insolent and derisive behavior, felt sadder and more melancholy. That's how I pronounced it in high school until my art teacher corrected me. I had never heard the word spoken aloud in my life in 18 years, so I pronounced it melancholy. I had never heard it spoken before. Felt sadder and more melancholy than he had ever been in his life. My art teacher, G. Gary Gordon, he's probably dead right now. It's like, melancholy? What is that word? He was looking up at the ceiling. Oh, melancholy! Than he had ever been in his life. And turning to Pinocchio, he said to him, "You young rascal, you are not yet complete, and already you are beginning to show lack of respect to your father. That is bad, my boy, very bad." So if you want a straight reading of Pinocchio, it's on YouTube in at least 2 versions. The only reason to listen to me read it is you get the annotated version and you get comments and he dried a tear and you get literary criticism and you get drunkenness. The legs and feet remained to be done. When Geppetto had finished the feet, he received a kick on the tip of his nose. Very violent. They don't write children's books like this anymore, and they should. It's just a story. I deserve it, he said to himself. I should have thought of it sooner. Now it is too late. He then took the puppet under the arms and placed him on the floor to teach him to walk. Geppetto, he tries. Pinocchio's legs were stiff and he could not move. But Geppetto led him by the hand and showed him how to put one foot before the other. When his legs became flexible, try to explain how wood becomes flexible. Pinocchio began to walk by himself and to run about the room until, having gone out of the house door, he jumped into the street and escaped. So, like a kid, Pinocchio just runs away. Poor Geppetto rushed after him, but he was not able to overtake him, for that rascal Pinocchio leaped in front of him like a hare, and knocking his wooden feet together against the pavement, made as much clatter as 20 pairs of peasants' clogs. Stop him, shouted Geppetto, but the people in the street, seeing a wooden puppet running like a racehorse, stood still in astonishment to look, and laughed and laughed and laughed. At last, as good luck would have it, a carabiner, soldier. So they use this word often in this book, a carabiner. Why don't they just say soldier? It's the only Italian word with a little footnote in the book. So Watermill Classics thinks it's important that American students should know the word carabiner. I mean, this book could be a introduction to Italian, but they don't do that. Alas, as good luck would have it, a carabiner arrived who, hearing the uproar, imagined that a colt had escaped from his master. Planting himself courageously with his legs apart in the middle of the road, he waited with the determined purpose of stopping him and thus preventing the chance of worse disasters. Right? When Pinocchio, still at some distance, saw the soldier blocking the street, he tried to take him by surprise and to pass between his legs, but he failed sadly. So I cannot trust this translation into American English. It sucks! The carabiner, take two, the soldier, without disturbing himself in the least, caught him cleverly by the nose. It was an immense nose of ridiculous proportions that seemed to be made to be held by soldiers, and gave him to Geppetto. Wishing to punish him, Geppetto intended to pull his ears at once, but imagine his feelings when he could not succeed in finding them. And do you know the reason? In his hurry to model him, he had forgotten to make them. So Geppetto just is an alcoholic and forgot to make Pinocchio some ears. Did he also forget to make Pinocchio a little penis? Pinocchio eats a lot, so he has to piss and poo. He then took him by the collar, and as he was leading him away, he said to him, shaking his hand threateningly, "We will go home at once, and as soon as we arrive, we will settle our accounts. Never doubt it." At this announcement, Pinocchio threw himself on the ground and would not take another step. The kid is having a tantrum. Oh yeah, that's normal. In the meanwhile, a crowd of idlers and inquisitive people began to assemble and to make a ring around them. Some of them said one thing, some another. "Poor puppet," said several. "He is right not to wish to return home." No one comments that there's a puppet made of wood and he's alive. They just take it for normal. Who knows how Geppetto, that bad old man, will beat him? They don't know that. And the others added maliciously, "Geppetto seems a good man, but with boys he is a regular tyrant. If that poor puppet is left in his hands, he is quite capable of tearing him to pieces." Well, Geppetto made the puppet. So you get the opinion of the village folk. H.P. Lovecraft would call them rustics. It ended in so much being said and done that the soldier at last set Pinocchio at liberty and conducted Geppetto to prison. Geppetto goes to prison. That's not in the Disney movie. The poor man, not being ready to defend himself with words, cried like a calf, and as he was being led away to prison, sobbed out, "Wretched boy, and to think how I have labored to make him a well-behaved puppet. But it serves me right. I should have thought of it sooner." What happened afterward is a story that really is beyond belief, but I will relate it to you in the following chapters. Carlo Collodi, he's a great writer. I don't trust this translation. It's a very generic translation, I think. The company Watermill Classic, they're from New Jersey, and for some reason they think they know the kind of English American school children should have as they like make money. This is the kind of book that would just be on one of those bookmobiles. So complete and unabridged.